They thought he belonged to a billionaire, but the dog dangling from a rusted tower wasn't some prized possession. He was the only friend a poor little girl had in this world. In a city that had forgotten how to care, her tearful fight to bring him home will make you believe in love again. Before we begin, where are you watching from today? Is it warm where you are, or cold, like Iron Vale? Tell us in the comments, we'd love to know. Now, let me tell you a story you won't forget. Iron Vale was a city that had stopped blooming decades ago. Once a haven of steel and steam, it had become a crumbling relic of its former self. A city with crooked teeth and coal-stained breath. Brick chimneys stood like forgotten soldiers, and rust clung to every metal surface like lichen to old trees. The air was heavy with the scent of rain and long-cooled engines. It was not a place for childhood dreams. But in a narrow corner of this sleeping beast, a little girl and her dog dared to dream anyway. Luna was 9 years old, but there was something in her face that seemed older. Something born of silence and waiting. Her skin was soft with a dusky glow, and her eyes were dark, large, and too observant for someone so young. Her limbs were thin but wiry, like a sapling that had learned to bend with the wind rather than break. Her hair was always a bit wild, curling out from under her knit cap, often flecked with soot from passing trains, or ash from the factory chimneys. She lived with her grandmother, Sarah, in apartment 2B of the Muirfield complex, a red brick building so old the paint peeled like dried leaves. Sarah was a tall, lean woman in her late 60s, her back straight despite the creaking in her knees. Her once black hair had turned steel gray, always pinned tightly in a bun. She spoke softly, walked slowly, and loved Luna with the kind of fierce quiet only someone who had lost everything could manage. Sarah had been a nurse at the Iron Vale General Hospital for 22 years. She'd watched factories close, workers fade into silence, and hope leak out of people like breath in winter. When Luna's mother, Sarah's only child, died in a bus crash that took 15 lives, Sarah did not cry. She simply brought Luna home, wrapped her in a thick quilt, and told her the world would try to forget her. But she must never forget who she is. And Luna never did, but she did become quieter. That was until Buddy. Buddy was a golden retriever, with fur like melted sunlight and eyes full of patience. He'd come into Luna's life 3 winters ago, on a night when the wind had howled like an angry god. Luna had found him in an alley, whimpering under a broken shopping cart. His paw was bleeding. Someone had left him there, tied with wire, half-starved and forgotten. She had no leash, no training, no plan, but she had a wool scarf and 2 pieces of sausage from Sarah's dinner. She fed him, wrapped him, and led him home. Sarah, ever practical, had said nothing. But the next morning, Buddy had a bowl, a bed, and a name. From that day on, they were inseparable. Luna would talk to Buddy when she couldn't talk to people. She'd whisper her dreams into his fur, dreams of a warm city where people smiled more and the sky was blue for more than a day. She'd read him poems from old library books and sing to him when Sarah fell asleep on the couch. He never barked unless he had to. He simply stayed close, leaning into her like he knew he was the anchor she needed. Each morning before school, Luna and Buddy would walk 3 blocks along the cracked sidewalk to the corner where the old ice cream truck sat abandoned. It had been there since before Luna was born. No one drove it anymore, but children still touched its cold frame like a memory that wouldn't let go. On its rusted side, a faded slogan could just barely be read. CA 405 cool treats since 1971. Luna traced the letters with her gloved finger. "Do you think it came from somewhere warm?" she asked Buddy. "Like a place where people wear sunglasses and eat real ice cream instead of powdered milk pops?" Buddy licked her wrist. She smiled. One Tuesday afternoon, after school and another round of reheated soup for lunch, Luna asked Sarah if she could take Buddy for a longer walk. "Just to the edge of the refinery," she said. "I won't go inside, I promise." Sarah looked out the window, where the sky was darkening earlier than usual. "Don't let him eat anything off the ground, and come back before the streetlights flicker." Luna nodded and bundled up. Buddy wagged his tail, eager as ever. The refinery was a skeleton of steel and silence. Towering pipes bent into the clouds, and smokestacks like stone chimneys pierced the skyline. The fences were covered in dead ivy, and the wind made strange hollow sounds between the structures. Luna never went too far. She liked the quiet, but not the kind that whispered back. That day, as she reached the edge of the fence, Buddy stiffened. His ears pricked up, and he gave a low, warning growl. Luna followed his gaze. Two figures stood at the far end of the chain-link barrier, a man and a woman. Too far to see clearly, but close enough to notice their posture, still, alert, watching. The man wore a dark cap pulled low, and the woman had sunglasses on, despite the dim gray sky. They weren't talking. They weren't moving. Just standing. Buddy's growl grew louder. Luna placed a hand on his back. "Let's go home." They turned and walked quickly back toward the neighborhood. Luna didn't look back, but she felt eyes on her the whole way. Dear listener, before you go, I, your humble narrator, invite you to play a quiet game of riddles. Each chapter hides a whisper, a name, a clue. When all 6 are found, they will lead you to the city where our next tale will bloom. This chapter's clue, a number, a code, a road perhaps. Only those who've driven through the coast might know. The fog hadn't lifted by the time Luna returned home with Buddy that evening. Ironvale wore mist like a second skin. Thick, pale, and damp. The kind of mist that swallowed sound and erased distance. Even the streetlights looked confused, casting orange halos into nothing. Sarah was setting down plates when they entered, 2 chipped bowls of leftover rice and a smaller one on the floor. Waiting, always, for Buddy. "He didn't eat anything strange, did he?" Sarah asked without turning around. "No," Luna replied, pulling off her coat, "but he growled at 2 people near the refinery." She tried to make it sound casual, but the weight in her voice lingered. Sarah's hand paused on the teapot. "What kind of people?" "I don't know. The man wore a cap. The woman had sunglasses even though it wasn't sunny." Luna bit her lip. "They weren't doing anything, just looking." Sarah said nothing for a moment. Then, "Stay away from that side of the neighborhood, and don't walk alone." "I wasn't alone," Luna murmured. She looked down at Buddy, who was now curled beside the door, chin on his paws, ears still flicking like he was listening to something far away. Later that night, Ironvale seemed to fall even quieter. Luna slept, though it was the kind of sleep that danced at the edge of dreaming, shallow and full of shadows. Outside, a car pulled to a slow stop near the corner of Muirfield Complex. It didn't hum like the old sedans the neighbors drove. It purred, low, smooth, and new. Inside were Gordon and Mayra. Gordon, behind the wheel, was a large man with a frame like poured concrete. His jaw was squared, and his eyes were small but sharp, used to watching more than speaking. Tattoos poked out from the sleeves of his dark coat, some faded, some newer. He tapped the steering wheel as he stared at the building in front of them. Beside him, Mayra adjusted the zipper of her leather gloves. She was tall, angular, with platinum blonde hair tied back, and cheekbones sharp enough to cut ice. Her lips were painted the color of dried blood. There was a time when she'd worked with animals, back when she still felt things. That had ended years ago. Now, she took jobs. And this one was simple. Retrieve a dog. Golden retriever. Well-groomed, likely wearing a homemade collar, belongs to billionaire Emerson Faulkner. Should be in the Ironvale area. Bring him in, quietly. And there he was, sleeping in a tiny apartment with a cracked window on the 3rd floor. "Looks just like the picture," Mayra said, checking the grainy reference image again. "Right down to the scar on the left paw." Gordon turned the key and the engine stopped. They waited. At 2:13 a.m., Sarah's apartment went dark. At 2:41 a.m., Luna rolled over in her bed. At 2:57 a.m., a quiet click sounded as the back door of the Muirfield complex opened. Old locks, easy pickings. Buddy raised his head. He didn't bark, but he stood up, ears high, sensing movement before it even came close. The hallway creaked, a whisper, a soft clink of metal. Mayra moved with the silence of someone who had practiced. She crouched low, held out a piece of jerky, and whispered gently, "Solomon? Hey, Solomon? Good boy?" Buddy stepped forward, not trusting, not afraid. He looked back once, toward Luna's room, then patted closer. And in a breath, the loop was over his neck. He let out a sharp bark. But Gordon was fast. A cloth bag over the head, not tight, just enough to muffle and confuse. A quick lift, a carry down the back stairs. The van door shut with a dull click. By the time Luna sat up in her bed, Buddy was already gone. She blinked at the silence, the absence, the feeling that something had just been stolen from the air. The van rattled through empty streets. Rusted fire escapes zipped past the windows like bones. Buddy didn't struggle now, just lay curled in the back, breathing slow, head pressed against the cold metal wall. He wasn't dumb. He had smelled the lie in Mayra's voice too late. 20 minutes later, they reached the edge of the city, Sector 7, a place no one cared about. The skeleton of an old chemical refinery, shut down after a leak that poisoned the groundwater and turned the grass brittle. People whispered about ghosts here, not the kind that wore sheets, but the kind that glowed under your skin. They parked beneath a collapsed support beam. Gordon grabbed the leash. Mayra carried the flashlight. They made their way through a breach in the fence and into the belly of rust. Inside the tower at the heart of the facility, long abandoned, wind-blasted, and skeletal, they found a room still mostly intact. Metal beams like ribs. Concrete floor cracked in a web of black lines. On one wall, barely visible beneath layers of soot and graffiti, was a faded message. City of Angels burned, but some wings survived. Mayra paused. She touched the words with her gloved fingers. Poetic, she muttered. Gordon didn't care. He tied Buddy to a pipe with a long enough leash to lie down. He'll be fine, he grunted. We'll come back tomorrow. Buddy looked up at them, not with fear, but with something colder. Memory. He had been abandoned once before. This time, he would not wait to be rescued. He would find his own way back. Another whisper lingers on the wall, a city known for angels, or perhaps only the echo of their wings. If you listen close, you may feel a breeze from the west. The sky above Sector 7 shifted from leaden gray to a watery blue as dawn crept over Ironvale. Cold wind cut through the broken windows of the old refinery, and the steel beams groaned as if complaining about another day they hadn't been allowed to collapse. In the highest chamber of the rusted tower, a golden retriever lay silently, his breath fogging the cold air, his body curled tight for warmth. Buddy had not barked since he arrived. He had paced, pawed the floor, and sniffed every corner of the room, but no cry came from his throat. That wasn't fear. It was memory and instinct. The room wasn't much more than a metal cage, once a control center for refinery exhaust systems, now stripped of machines, windows shattered, insulation peeled. The floor trembled with each gust of wind. Buddy had been tethered to a rusted pipe by a nylon leash just long enough to let him move in a small circle. Water dripped from somewhere above, striking a puddle with maddening rhythm. Still, he waited. The leash tugged with each step, but Buddy tested it gently, like a musician tuning a string. He knew not to panic. Panic wasted strength, and strength was something he might need soon. The pipe to which he was tied bore a rusted plaque, half flaked away. Beneath layers of dust and peeling paint, a few words could still be read in faded red. Santa Monica level, Sector 7C, a strange name for a floor in a dying city. Buddy blinked slowly. Somewhere far away, he remembered running on grass, warmth, laughter, Luna's voice reading poems under a quilt. He pressed his chin to the floor and closed his eyes. Across town, Luna had just opened hers. The house felt different. Too quiet. Too still. The kind of quiet that had weight. She rushed from her bed, skidded into the hallway, and called, "Buddy?" No sound. She checked under the table, behind the couch, even in the tiny bathroom he hated. She ran to the front door. It was shut. Locked. But the back door, the old one near the boiler room, hung slightly ajar. Her heart dropped. Sarah appeared behind her, tying the belt of her robe. Her silver gray hair was down, frayed from sleep, her brows furrowed. "What's wrong?" "He's not here," Luna said, her voice thready. The door was open. Sarah moved fast for her age. She grabbed a flashlight, shoved on her coat, and stepped into the backyard. They searched for 10 minutes, then 20. No prints. No sign. Only the soft hush of snow settling where it shouldn't. "Someone took him," Luna whispered. Sarah didn't answer, but her eyes went sharp, her mouth set. She had known loss. She had buried it deep. But she would not let her granddaughter learn what it meant to lose everything. Not again. "We call the police," she said. "Now." 2 blocks underground, in a place Ironvale forgot it built. Sammy was feeding his dog the last of a turkey sandwich he'd found behind the diner. Sammy was 12, though he looked younger, thin from hunger, with cheeks too sharp for a child, and hands permanently smudged with soot. His black hoodie was 2 sizes too big, his jeans patched with duct tape. But his eyes, big, brown, watchful, missed nothing. He had found the dog 2 nights ago, shivering behind a dumpster near the train yard. No collar, but clean. The kind of clean that meant escaped, not stray. He had taken it as a sign. He didn't believe in angels, but he did believe in things showing up when you needed them most. The dog had a scar above one paw, like someone had once saved it. He called him Sonny. Sonny was quiet but not scared, loyal in a quiet, knowing way. When Sammy talked, the dog listened, head tilted, tail brushing the ground. It was the first time in months Sammy hadn't felt completely invisible. He shared everything with Sonny, the food, the corner of his mattress, even the old army blanket he'd found. He didn't know that Sonny was Solomon, the real pet of billionaire Emerson Faulkner, and for now, he didn't care. Back in Sector 7C, Buddy began to shiver. The temperature was dropping. The wind howled through broken windows like a voice too long silenced. The leash held firm. He turned again, pressing against the pipe for warmth. Suddenly, footsteps. Gordon stomped in, swearing under his breath, followed by Myra with a thermos in her hand. She looked annoyed. "No signal again," she muttered. "We're wasting time here." Gordon tossed a granola bar at Buddy's feet. It landed unopened. "The buyer wants a live dog, not a frozen one. He'll eat when he's hungry." Myra turned and walked to the window. She stared out across the skeletal frames of Ironvale's forgotten industry. "You think he's the real deal?" Gordon asked. "The billionaire's mutt?" She looked back at Buddy. "He's clean, well-fed, same fur, same scar, probably." "Probably?" Gordon raised an eyebrow. "What if we grab the wrong one?" Myra shrugged. "Then it's someone else's problem." She didn't see the way Buddy's ears lifted at that, didn't see how his body tensed, but Gordon noticed. "He's smarter than he looks." Myra took a long drink from the thermos. So was the last one. Then they were gone again, back down the echoing stairs, leaving Buddy with the sound of the wind and a word echoing in his mind. "Probably." At the Ironvale police station, Luna sat beside Sarah, clutching a folded paper with a hand-drawn sketch of Buddy. The officer taking their statement was Corporal Jennings, a tired-looking man in his 50s with thinning hair and a mustache that twitched when he was trying to look serious. He was kind, but skeptical. "Dogs go missing all the time," he said, "especially retrievers, friendly sort, wanderers." "Buddy doesn't wander," Luna said, voice sharp. Jennings held up his hands. "We'll file a report. You said you saw 2 suspicious people near the refinery?" Luna nodded. "The woman wore sunglasses at night. The man had a dark cap. They were just watching." Jennings jotted it down, but his eyes said he didn't believe her. Or maybe he just didn't want to. Sarah leaned in, her voice cold. "If this were someone's car missing, would you say it wandered off?" That shut him up. That night, in the dark shell of Sector 7C, Buddy sat very still. His leash was starting to fray where it rubbed against the rusted pipe. And rust, like everything else in Ironvale, could be broken if you knew where to push. He waited and listened, because somewhere out there, someone was listening for him too. Santa, Monica, 2 names that mean sun and salt and waves. But what are they doing on a rusty floor in a forgotten city? Keep it tucked away. It started with a poster. Sarah had printed them, using the old office printer she kept under the ironing board. A wheezing gray thing that made noises like a wounded animal and spat out paper reluctantly. Luna had drawn Buddy's face herself. The soft, kind eyes, the scar on his paw, the slight wave in his fur near the shoulders. Underneath, her handwriting declared, "Missing, golden retriever, answers to Buddy, more than a pet. He's family." They stapled the posters to telephone poles, the community board outside the corner store, the cracked fence near the underpass. And to Luna's surprise, people started to notice. Not many, but enough. Mrs. Tolley from the bakery said she thought she saw a golden retriever near the old schoolyard. Mr. Reeves, who ran the pawn shop, offered to let her hang the poster in his window. But then, one afternoon, as Luna sat in the school library trying to breathe through the ache in her chest, her classmate Anita came rushing in. Anita was a fast-talking, sharp-eyed girl with a high ponytail that bounced when she moved, and glasses that always slid down her nose. She wasn't mean exactly, but she wasn't gentle either. "You're not gonna believe this," Anita blurted, dropping her tablet onto the desk in front of Luna. "Isn't that your dog?" Luna leaned forward. The photo on the screen showed a golden retriever, soft eyes, shiny coat, sitting beside a silver food bowl inside what looked like a warehouse. But the caption above it read, "Found, billionaire's dog Solomon, safe after rumored abduction, anonymous source." Luna blinked. That's Buddy." Anita squinted. "Says it's some rich guy's dog. Faulkner something?" Luna stared harder. The scar, the eyes. It was him. "No, that's not Solomon. That's my dog." Later that evening, back at the apartment, Luna sat hunched at the kitchen table while Sarah slowly scrolled through the article on her old desktop monitor. The screen was cracked in one corner, and everything had a greenish tint, but the picture was clear enough. Sarah's fingers paused on the mouse, her brows knit together. "Well, I'll be—" The article claimed that Solomon, the dog belonging to Emerson Faulkner, a reclusive billionaire known for his innovations in bioelectric engineering, had been recovered after a short misplacement. The source was anonymous, the photo uncredited. "It's him," Luna whispered, "but they don't know what they're talking about. They think he's Solomon, but he's not." Sarah looked at her granddaughter's face. "You're sure?" "Of course I'm sure." Sarah didn't ask the next question, though it hung in the air. "And what do we do now?" Far below the city, Sammy lit a candle stub and watched the flame dance. Sonny, who, unknown to Sammy, was the real Solomon, lay curled beside him on a folded wool blanket, gnawing gently on a bone Sammy had found behind the butcher's shop. The room was narrow, the ceiling low, the walls lined with aging electrical conduits and rusted breaker boxes. It wasn't meant to be lived in, but it was dry, and Sammy knew how to make places livable. Sammy reached for his copy of Treasure Island, one of the only books he owned. It was worn and soft from years of rereading. Between the pages he kept his bookmark, an old laminated library card with faded blueprint. It read, "Los Angeles Public Library, Branch Number 3. He had found it in a box behind a thrift store a year ago, and for some reason never let it go. He didn't know why. Maybe because Los Angeles sounded like a real place, a place with sun and oceans, and stories that didn't end in steam and rust. He glanced at Sonny, who was now sleeping with his nose tucked into his tail. "You're not just a stray, are you?" he asked softly. "You smell like clean floors and real bacon." Sonny thumped his tail once. The next day, Luna returned to the school library and asked to use the computer. Mrs. Harrow, the librarian, was a short woman with curly red hair and a cardigan full of pins that read things like "Shh happens" and "Read or die." She was soft-spoken but observant, and she gave Luna a little nod of approval when she explained the situation. "I want to find where that photo came from," Luna said. "The one of Buddy." Mrs. Harrow helped her look. They traced the article to a news aggregator, then to a repost on a dog enthusiast forum. The original poster's username was simply Myra99. Luna frowned. "Mayra? That a friend of yours?" Mrs. Harrow asked. "No," Luna said slowly. "I think she's the woman I saw by the refinery." That night, Luna printed the photo and added it to her wall of notes, right next to the map of Sector 7 and a list of possible hiding places. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And Luna was done waiting. The next afternoon, she returned to the alley behind the train yard, where old pallets leaned against rusted dumpsters and the wind carried a sharp tang of motor oil. She had no real reason, just a hunch, a feeling. And sometimes feelings were all she had. She almost turned back. But then she heard it, a bark, low, friendly, familiar. She froze. Another bark. Luna followed the sound to a half-open door behind a maintenance building. Inside, the air smelled of metal and mildew. Pipes lined the ceiling. She stepped forward and came face to face with a boy her age holding a flashlight. They both froze. "Who are you?" the boy asked, stepping protectively in front of a shape curled on a blanket behind him. "I'm looking for my dog," Luna said. "Golden retriever, name's Buddy." The boy didn't answer right away. He looked at the dog behind him, then back at her. "This one's Sonny. He has a scar on his left paw," Luna said quietly, like someone saved him once. The boy didn't move. "What's your name?" she asked. He hesitated then. "Sammy." And the two stood there, not enemies, not friends, but two children on the edge of something strange. Back in the tower of Sector 7C, Buddy was still waiting. The leash had begun to tear, and his ears twitched at every sound, because Luna was coming, and hope, like rust, could eat through anything if you gave it enough time. Paper holds memories longer than our minds. A library card, dusty and forgotten, still whispers a city's name. Did you catch it? The air beneath Ironvale was not meant for breathing. It tasted like metal, like old smoke and forgotten chemicals. Each breath left a trace on the tongue. Ash, copper, something older than the city itself. Luna pulled her scarf tighter as she followed Sammy through the half-buried entrance behind the train yard. A metal grate had been pushed aside, revealing a staircase of crumbling concrete leading downward into the belly of the old industrial district. Sammy moved with the confidence of someone who had done this before. His small frame was wiry and fast, perfect for ducking under low pipes and squeezing through tight passages. He wore a tattered green jacket with frayed sleeves and a hood that had long since lost its drawstring. His flashlight, wrapped with black tape, flickered with each step, casting long shadows on the damp, rust-streaked walls. Luna stayed close behind, holding a smaller flashlight borrowed from Sarah's drawer. Her boots, too big and second-hand, splashed through puddles that reflected fractured images of rusted valves and cracked cement. The silence down here wasn't empty. It hummed. Low, constant, alive. "How far do these tunnels go?" she asked, her voice small in the tight space. "Everywhere," Sammy said. "Ironvale used to run on heat and steam. All of it had to be piped through here, factories, laundries, even the bakery on Delson Street. That's why nobody comes down anymore. It's all ghost lungs now." "Ghost lungs?" He grinned over his shoulder. "Places that used to breathe. Now they just wheeze." The path narrowed, forcing them to crouch. They passed through an arch where insulation hung down like dirty cobwebs. A rat scurried past, fat and fast, vanishing into the dark. Luna tried not to flinch. "Does Sonny come down here with you?" "Sometimes," Sammy said. "But not this deep. He's waiting with a friend, a guy who works in the substation. I pay him in batteries and smokes." She looked at him then. Not just a street kid, not just a boy surviving. A traitor, a negotiator. Someone who had learned the rules of a world adults couldn't see. They emerged into a larger chamber where pipes curved overhead, like the ribs of some ancient creature. Steam hissed from a cracked vent in the corner. Metal stairs wound up along one wall, leading to a platform blocked by a twisted gate. Sammy paused. "This used to connect to Sector 7. There's an old maintenance route no one uses anymore, but it still gets you close." "How close?" "Close enough to hear things." They climbed the steps, each one creaking under their weight. Luna's flashlight swept over the wall and froze. A metal sign, half dislodged, hung at an angle. Letters stamped into its rusted surface read, "La Cienega Underground Maintenance, Restricted Zone." Luna reached out and touched it, her gloved hand brushing years of grime. "La Cienega," she murmured. "What?" "Nothing." She smiled faintly. "Just sounds like somewhere far away. Somewhere not made of pipes." They squeezed through the broken gate and entered a tight corridor where the walls were lined with valve wheels and numbered panels. Their steps echoed louder here. Somewhere above them, the city carried on, people working, eating, forgetting. But down here, something stirred. Buddy. He wasn't barking yet, but he was pacing. In the tower, the leash had frayed nearly halfway through. His breathing was shallow, his ears flicking constantly. Then, faint, like a thread pulled from the noise, he heard it. Footsteps. Somewhere below. He perked up, turned toward the sound, and let out a low, cautious bark. Luna stopped. "Did you hear that?" Sammy nodded. "That wasn't a pipe." They picked up their pace. The corridor bent left, then right, and opened into a smaller room filled with old ductwork and a pile of discarded machinery. A rusted ventilation shaft climbed up the far wall, its grates missing in places. Sammy pointed up. "That leads to the base of the tower. If he's above, we can hear him through the vents." Luna stepped forward. "Buddy!" she called, voice shaking. Above them, Buddy barked again, louder this time. Luna gasped. "It's him! That's him!" Sammy looked at the shaft. We can't climb that. Not safely. But there's another way. There's a ladder that leads to the refinery control floor. I've only used it once. It's bad. I don't care. He hesitated, then nodded. Come on. They crawled back into the corridor, weaving between old carts and stacks of rusted drums. Water dripped steadily from somewhere unseen. Luna's breath came faster now, not from fear, but from a fire reigniting in her chest. Buddy was alive. He was close. Above, Mayra scrolled through her phone, frowning. No signal again? Gordon stood near the edge of the room, arms crossed. We need to wrap this up. That buyer's late and the kid's probably looking for the mutt. Mayra sipped from her thermos. We'll give it one more night. They didn't see the leash fray, didn't notice Buddy had shifted slightly, positioning the torn edge against a jagged piece of bolt sticking out of the pipe. He was working slowly, silently, breaking it down. Back in the tunnels, Luna and Sammy reached the bottom of a corroded service ladder. It rose into darkness like a spine. Sammy tested it, gave her a nod. Don't look down. I'm looking up, Luna said. They climbed, step by step. Rust bit at their hands. The smell of oil and mold grew stronger. Somewhere above, Luna thought she heard a voice. Or maybe it was memory. And then faint again. Buddy's bark. Stronger now. She climbed faster. In the tower, Buddy made one final twist. The leash gave way. He didn't run. Not yet. He crouched beside the broken pipe, listening. His ears angled. Waiting. Because something was coming. And this time, he would not be alone. Some streets don't end. They vanish, only to return in memories. La Cienega? Sounds like a whisper from a faraway coast. You're getting closer. The ladder groaned under Luna's weight as she pulled herself onto the landing. Her palms stung from gripping rusted metal, and her breath came in short, anxious bursts. Behind her, Sammy climbed steadily, his green jacket damp with sweat, dark curls clinging to his forehead beneath the edge of his hood. The narrow shaft they'd scaled opened into a platform of decayed flooring and fractured pipes. Moonlight bled in through broken glass slats, painting the steel walls in streaks of silver and soot. They had reached the refinery's topmost level, the Santa Monica floor, Sector 7C. Luna's heart pounded. "Buddy!" she called, her voice cracking. From behind a half-toppled console came a bark, one she knew in her bones. Then Buddy appeared, stumbling into view, his leash trailing, his golden fur matted with grime, but still glowing faintly in the moonlight. Luna dropped to her knees. "Buddy!" The dog whimpered and sprinted forward, tail high, paws clattering across steel. He crashed into her, almost knocking her over. She buried her face in his neck, breathing him in, his warmth, his scent, even the faint sharpness of rust and dust clinging to his coat. Sammy crouched nearby, watching them with a quiet smile. "You were right," he said. "He's not just a pet." But the moment shattered when a door slammed open behind them. Gordon. He stood in the doorway, breathing heavily, a flashlight in one hand and a crowbar in the other. His heavy frame blocked most of the hallway behind him. Sweat shone on his bald head, and his face was twisted in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me," he growled. "How the hell did you get in here?" Buddy turned instantly, placing himself between Luna and the man. Gordon stepped forward. "You little brats don't know what you're messing with. That dog is worth more than your entire block." Sammy stepped in front of Luna. "He's not yours." Gordon raised the crowbar. "Doesn't matter, I'm taking him back." But then, over the whine of the wind, came the crackle of a radio. A voice, sharp and clear. "Unit 213, move to East Gate. Vega says we've got eyes inside." Gordon froze. Then the scream of tires echoed through the factory below, followed by booted footsteps on steel. A second later, someone shouted, "This is the Iron Veil Police. Drop your weapon." A red laser dot landed on Gordon's chest. He didn't drop the crowbar. He turned and ran. Sammy grabbed Luna's wrist. "Move!" They bolted down the hallway, Buddy at their side. They didn't know where they were going. Just away. Behind them, flashlights danced across the walls. Officers shouted. Radios barked orders. Doors slammed open and shut. The tower trembled with movement. Mayra, from the far end of the level, saw Gordon racing toward her. She swore, spun on her heel, and sprinted toward a side exit. Her coat flared behind her like wings. But Detective Louise Vega was faster. Vega had seen 30 years of city rot, and it had settled in her posture. She was lean and unshakable, her short dark hair clipped close to her head, her eyes always scanning. She had joined the Ironvale force after losing her younger sister to a trafficking ring that had operated in plain sight. Since then, she had made it her mission to find what others refused to see. Tonight, she had followed the reports. The odd noise, the stolen dog, the name Faulkner, and a tip from a janitor at the courthouse. She had put it together. And now she ran. "Stop!" she called after Mayra. "You're done!" Mayra didn't stop. She hit a steel door, slammed it open, and ran straight into two officers waiting outside. She went down hard. Back in the tower, Gordon's boots slammed against the metal staircase as he tried to descend. But rust had weakened everything. His weight broke a step, then another, and with a snapping sound, the railing gave way. Gordon screamed as he fell. The sound stopped a second later. Luna, Sammy, and Buddy paused in the hallway, breathless. From behind, Vega appeared. "You kids okay?" Luna nodded slowly, eyes wide. Vega holstered her weapon. "Come with me, we're getting you home." Later, in the back of a police cruiser, Luna clung to Buddy while Sarah stood outside, arguing with a young officer who didn't want to let her pass the barricade. Sarah, wrapped in her long gray coat, her silver hair unpinned and loose, looked like a storm contained in bone. "I'm her guardian," she snapped. "I'm going through." The officer looked at Vega, who gave a nod. "Let her." Sarah hurried to the car and opened the door. Luna flung herself into her grandmother's arms. Buddy pressed between them. Sarah held them both without speaking, just a soft hand stroking Luna's tangled hair. Sammy stood nearby, shifting awkwardly from foot to foot. One of the officers offered him a blanket, which he accepted but didn't wrap around himself. He was used to the cold. Vega walked over. "You're the one who helped them?" Sammy nodded. "You have family?" He shook his head. Vega looked at him for a long moment, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a card. "My sister would have liked you. I think you've got a good heart. I'll make sure someone's looking after you now." Sammy took the card. It was bent at the edges. Her name was written in blue ink across the top. Back in the tower, a crime scene unit set up floodlights. Officers marked bloodstains on the stairs. Myra was cuffed and loaded into a van. She didn't speak, her jaw set, her eyes unreadable. Vega stood on the edge of the lot, watching the city breathe in silence. "Unit 213, her radio crackled again. "All suspects in custody, awaiting orders." She clicked the mic. "Copy that. Return to base." Her eyes narrowed. "Los Angeles area code." She tucked the radio back into her jacket. In the back seat of Sarah's car, Luna curled with Buddy's head in her lap. She looked out the window, watching the towers of Ironvale fade behind them. "We're going home," she whispered. Buddy thumped his tail once, and far below, in a cracked pipe tunnel, the last echo of a voice whispered down the corridor. A number, a name, a city that still waited. Numbers again. Some speak louder than words. This one? It rings from downtown towers, between sirens and palm trees. Do you hear it? The clues are complete now. 6 whispers in the dark, 6 fragments of a hidden city. Have you solved it yet? Drop the name of the city you think our next story takes place in, right here in the comments. I'll reveal the answer, exactly 24 hours from now. The warehouse on the edge of Ironvale's western rail yard was one of those places that had never officially opened and yet had never fully closed. The structure squatted like a forgotten insect, flat, low, surrounded by fences that leaned with rust and time. A cracked security light flickered at the corner, pulsing weakly like a heartbeat in its final moments. Inside, under the hum of aged fluorescence, Gordon stood beside a folding metal table, tapping a USB drive against his palm. His face was still healing from the fall. Bruises spread like clouds across his jaw, and a thick bandage crossed his left temple. The fall hadn't broken him. Not yet. He stared at the dog in the kennel across the room. The golden retriever sat calmly, watching him with unreadable eyes. It wasn't the same dog they'd kept in the tower. This one was cleaner, fatter. His coat had a richer shine, his posture more dignified. Still, to most, the resemblance was uncanny. Solomon, the real Solomon, rescued days earlier by Sammy, and now reluctantly left in the care of a vet assistant sympathetic to Vega's ongoing investigation, had been returned to Gordon temporarily under an elaborate ruse. Vega needed bait, and Gordon, true to his greed, had taken it. He didn't know the full truth yet. Gordon's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. The contact read, Miles Network, a name used to disguise the truth behind what the man actually was. A media broker, known in certain underground circles for dealing in information, fabricated footage, and, when needed, manufactured scandals. Miles was a thin man with a voice like silk over broken glass. He had no physical presence in Ironvale, but his reach extended into the darkest corners of reputation and power. Gordon answered with a grunt. "You've got 20 seconds, Miles purred. "Is the merchandise ready?" "Yeah," Gordon muttered. "I've got the dog. Video's prepped. The story's airtight." "And Faulkner?" Gordon smirked. "Won't know what hit him. Media drops tomorrow. Tech billionaire's pet found in criminal underground exchange. You'll get your scandal. I get my payout." "Careful," Miles said. "Your name's not supposed to be in the story, unless you want a different kind of exposure." "I'm not stupid." "We'll see." The line went dead. Gordon slid the USB into a laptop and hit play. The screen lit with a carefully edited video, clips of Solomon barking in a cage, spliced with footage of alleyways, faint sirens, and distorted voiceovers claiming he'd been found during a major sting operation involving Faulkner's name, shady pet laundering, and a fabricated abuse scandal. It was designed to detonate, and Gordon was going to sell it to the highest bidder. Meanwhile, Detective Louise Vega sat in the back of a black van parked 4 blocks away, monitoring a tablet feed that showed every corner of the warehouse's interior. Her fingers hovered near her radio, eyes narrow and fixed. She wore the same dark coat she always did. Standard issue, but tailored to her frame, sleeves neatly pressed. Her hair was tucked behind one ear, revealing a stud earring in the shape of a compass. Something she'd worn since her sister's disappearance, a constant reminder to follow her own true north. Her team was small tonight. Just Officer Reyes, a burly ex-firefighter with a gentle demeanor, and tech analyst Meena Patel, a young woman with quick eyes and a quicker mind, who sat beside Vega with 2 tablets, 1 laptop, and a pair of noise-canceling headphones that rarely left her neck. "Signal strong," Meena said. "Camera in the vent shaft is feeding clean. We've got full audio." Reyes adjusted his earpiece. "Think you'll take the bait?" Vega didn't look away from the screen. "He already has. He just doesn't know it yet." Meena tapped the keyboard. "Media Tracker shows the leaked video's been downloaded to 6 private newsrooms and 2 independent watchdog sites in the last hour. He's pushing it hard." Vega's jaw tightened. "Let him. We need that final handoff. Proof of payment, traceable deposit. Then we move." Back in the warehouse, Gordon opened the kennel door and clipped a leash onto Solomon's collar. The dog didn't resist. He never did. That was the unnerving part. He simply obeyed, as if he had seen all this before and was just waiting for it to end. "Come on, golden boy," Gordon muttered. "Time for your close-up." He led the dog to the middle of the floor, where a white backdrop had been taped to the wall. A single light bulb swung from above, giving the whole setup a sickly yellow hue. Gordon positioned Solomon, adjusted the collar, then knelt with a remote shutter. "Okay, just one more. Look rich, look innocent." The camera clicked. From the van, Vega watched. "That's it," Meena said. "Uploading. We've got IP data from the transfer point." Reyes cocked his head. "Can we move?" "Not yet," Vega said. "Let him make the deal. We want the buyer." But just then, movement on the side feed. A shadow slipped across the camera at the back door. Not Gordon. Another figure, someone approaching. Vega's breath caught. "We've got company." Luna. She crept along the fence line behind the warehouse, heart thudding in her chest. She hadn't told Sarah where she'd gone. She couldn't. She had to know the truth. Sammy had overheard a man talking near the freight terminal, bragging about releasing a bombshell about Faulkner. It had led them here, and Luna had followed. Now she knelt beside a rusted oil drum, peeking through a crack in the siding. There he was, Gordon, with the dog, but not Buddy. Still, the lie was clear. She pulled out her phone, took 3 silent pictures, then turned to leave, and stepped on a glass shard. It cracked. Inside, Gordon stiffened. He turned toward the noise. "Who's out there?" Luna ducked, and Vega finally spoke into the radio. "Go, now!" The building erupted in light and sound. "Police! Down on the ground! Doors slammed open. Gordon reached for his laptop, but Reyes tackled him before he could touch it. Solomon barked once, backed against the wall. Vega strode in through the side entrance, her voice sharp. You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and unauthorized distribution of classified identity data. Gordon looked up at her, dazed. You set me up. No, she said. You set yourself up. We just pressed record. Outside, Luna stood by the back fence, her phone still in her hand. Sammy caught up to her, panting. They got him, she said. They got the man who tried to sell Buddy's story. Sammy nodded. But that's not Buddy. I know. Luna looked up at the warehouse windows glowing with blue and red. But it means we're close. Vega stood beside the kennel now, watching Solomon as he sat calmly. You've been through too much, she said softly, but you're going home. She turned to Reyes. Call Faulkner. Tell him we've recovered his dog, the real one this time. And the girl? Reyes asked. Vega glanced toward the gate where Luna's shadow had been moments ago. She's chasing something bigger than a pet, Vega murmured. She's chasing truth. We'll find her too. Sector 7 never slept, not in the way normal places did. Even abandoned, it breathed, a creature of rusted lungs and broken bones. The wind screamed through bent steel beams, echoed down forgotten shafts, and twisted around towers like something alive. And tonight, it was awake. Detective Louise Vega tightened the strap on her bulletproof vest as the tactical van slowed at the edge of the old refinery complex. Her boots hit the ground with a practiced thud. The rain, which had started an hour earlier, was now pouring in thick silver sheets, slicking every surface in a film of danger. Positions, she said into her radio. Her voice, calm and clipped, was met with the shuffle of movement, 4 officers fanning out through the shadows behind her, all dressed in matte black, visors down, weapons sheathed but ready. She moved like a wolf through the ruins, focused and precise. Her eyes scanned the old pathways, noting collapse points, rusted staircases, and shifting shadows. They were here to end it. Back in the control van, Meena Patel monitored drone feeds and thermal scanners. Her fingers moved like lightning across her interface, her brows drawn close over deep brown eyes. Multiple heat signatures, she whispered into her headset. Top floor, 2 figures, possibly Gordon and the girl. Vega nodded once. Reyes, flank north tower. Davis, take the generator hallway. I want a perimeter. No one gets out. Rain thundered overhead. Metal sang in its grief. Inside the top level of the refinery tower, Luna was already running. Sammy shouted behind her, Go left! That stairwell leads down to the old assembly floor. Buddy ran ahead, his golden coat darkened by the grime of the building and soaked through from broken skylights. His paws slipped on the wet metal, but he never slowed. His eyes burned with purpose. Gordon followed, close and relentless. The fall from the stairwell days ago had left him battered, but more desperate than ever. His coat flapped as he charged through the corridors, his boots crashing against hollow steel. In his hand was a length of pipe, rough, rusted, and unforgiving. Luna glanced back. Gordon was too close. I'll hold the door, Sammy shouted. Get to the lower catwalk. No, she yelled. Not without you. Buddy barked, sharp, urgent. They ducked under a broken support beam as Gordon roared, swinging the pipe. It struck the wall beside them, sending a shudder through the metal. A piece of rebar snapped and fell, nearly grazing Luna's shoulder. They burst onto the catwalk, an elevated path of iron grating that stretched across the refinery's upper cavern. Below was only darkness, the kind of black that had weight. Keep going, Sammy called from behind. There's an emergency ladder at the far end. Luna ran. The metal groaned beneath her with every step. Gordon stepped onto the catwalk and paused. It swayed slightly. The weight of his fury nearly pulled it sideways, but he pressed on, pipe clenched tight. He was gaining again. Buddy stopped, turned, his hackles raised. Buddy, no! Luna screamed. But the dog bolted. He charged back across the narrow catwalk, his nails clattering on the grating. Gordon raised the pipe, and Buddy leapt, a golden blur. He hit Gordon's chest with full force, knocking the man off balance. Gordon staggered. The pipe fell with a clang and skittered over the edge. The catwalk tilted. Buddy landed and scrambled to Luna's side. Gordon's foot slipped. He grabbed the railing, just in time. His fingers clawed at the rusted bars, boots dangling over a 20-foot drop. Water dripped from above. The metal beneath him creaked like something deciding. "Help!" he shouted. "Don't let me fall!" Luna froze. Her chest rose and fell like she couldn't breathe. Sammy reached for her arm. "Don't!" She turned away. Gordon's grip gave. He fell. A heavy thud echoed a second later, swallowed by the hollow belly of Sector 7. On the lower level, Myra sprinted through a maze of machinery. Her coat whipped behind her, soaked and heavy. Her face was pale, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She had no weapons. Only a phone clutched tight in one hand, the screen blinking desperately. She skidded into a side tunnel, straight into Detective Vega. Rain-drenched and unmoving, Vega stood with her sidearm lowered but firm. "It's over," she said. Myra raised the phone like a shield. "You don't know who hired me." "I know enough. They'll come for me." Vega stepped forward. "No, they won't, because you won't get the chance to talk to them again." Myra dropped the phone. Vega cuffed her, rain running down her face in silent streams. Luna, Sammy, and Buddy sat at the edge of the emergency stairwell, soaked, exhausted, and shaking. Flashlights flickered through the corridors as officers began to move in, voices echoing over radios. "Target down! Secondary suspect in custody. Building secure." Vega arrived minutes later, soaked to the bone, her eyes scanning the trio with a softness not often seen on her face. She crouched beside Luna. "You all right?" Luna nodded slowly. "He almost got away." Vega looked at Buddy, who leaned into Luna protectively. "No," she said. "He didn't." Sammy rubbed his hands together, glancing nervously around. "You're safe now, too," Vega told him. "You both are." Officers guided them down the final stairwell. Outside, red and blue lights strobed across the cracked pavement. A white van pulled up. Sarah emerged, wrapped in her heavy coat, eyes wide, fear etched into every wrinkle of her face. Luna ran into her arms. Buddy barked once and nuzzled into her coat. Sarah held them both, trembling. Vega watched from the side. Her arms were crossed, her lips tight, but her eyes glistened. "Iron Veil," she murmured to herself. "You don't give up your secrets easy, but the truth always finds a way through the rust." Rain fell harder now, but this time it felt like something washing away. The estate of Emerson Faulkner sat high above Iron Vale, separated by more than just distance. Its stone walls were bleached gray, windows lined with silent glass, and hedges trimmed with precision too perfect to be human. The gates, iron and motionless, had opened only twice in the last year. Once for a corporate envoy, and once for a private drone delivery of medication Faulkner refused to pick up in person. Inside the mansion, sunlight filtered through arched windows onto cold marble. Paintings hung on the walls, all abstract, cold, and colorless. In the heart of this curated stillness sat Emerson Faulkner, age 71, back rigid in an antique leather chair, one hand resting on a glass of lukewarm water. His hair was silver, combed back precisely. His skin was pale, almost translucent, as if he'd forgotten how to leave his home. He wore a charcoal suit without a tie, sleeves perfectly creased, and shoes that hadn't touched dirt in months. There was something hollow in the way he blinked, as if even his eyes were running on autopilot. His fortune had been built on silence, bioelectric implants, remote neural diagnostics, and predictive surveillance systems. But he hadn't spoken to another human being in person in over 60 days. That morning, he had been summoned. He didn't like being summoned. Yet now, he stood in his private garden, cane planted beside his foot, as Detective Vega approached him down the path of stone and moss. Behind her, 2 officers carried a kennel. Inside, a golden retriever lay curled, ribs showing, fur dulled with road dust and rain. Faulkner's expression did not change. "Who's this?" he asked. "This," Vega replied evenly, "is Solomon." He stared. Solomon opened his eyes, ears lifting faintly. The dog didn't move, too weak, but he looked straight at Faulkner. No panic, no blame, only recognition, worn, but intact. Faulkner took one step forward. "No," he said. "That's not right." His voice when he used it was like stone cracking after a long freeze. Vega waited. Faulkner knelt slowly. His knees popped. He reached through the bars, fingers trembling slightly, and touched the dog's head. The fur was cold, slightly damp. Solomon licked his hand once, a breath caught in Faulkner's chest. I thought... He trailed off. You thought wrong, Vega said. He was abandoned in a freight yard. If not for a boy who found him, he'd be dead. Faulkner lowered his head. He stayed there a moment longer than Vega expected. When he rose, he didn't meet her eyes. What happens now? He asked. That's up to you, Vega said. But you should know. Your name was nearly dragged into a media scandal. We stopped it in time. And the ones responsible? Mayra Adlin is in custody. Gordon is dead. And your housekeeper, Marla Lindstrom, she's been found guilty of facilitating the kidnapping for personal gain. She confessed. Faulkner exhaled slowly, and for the first time in years, something human cracked through the porcelain stillness of his expression. She used to walk him, he murmured, every morning. I paid her well. Too well, maybe. She knew you didn't care enough to notice he was gone, Vega said bluntly. She sold that assumption. Faulkner looked at Solomon again. She was right. 2 days later, at the Iron Vale Animal Rehabilitation Center, a humble facility painted in chipped yellow and sky blue, Solomon rested in a heated crate, his ribs now padded with soft towels and his water bowl always full. The vet, Dr. Helen Mears, was a round woman in her 50s with kind eyes and rough hands. She wore mismatched socks and glasses that slid constantly down her nose. She spoke softly to all animals, and even more softly to the children who often visited. When Sammy arrived with Vega, Solomon's ears perked up instantly. He remembers you, Vega said. Sammy, still wearing his green hoodie, now patched by hand and washed for the first time in weeks, smiled cautiously. His face still bore the shadows of street life, but there was warmth now in his gaze, like a fire that had finally been lit and protected. He slept beside me, Sammy said, brushing his fingers against Solomon's fur. He doesn't bark unless he needs to. Vega handed him a document folder. He's yours to care for, officially. Faulkner signed guardianship over to you. Dr. Mears will assist. Sammy blinked. He gave him to me? He said the dog deserved someone who noticed when he was missing. Sammy bit his lip. I'm not a vet or anything. No, Vega said. You're something better. You're someone who gave him a name when he didn't have one. Sammy's eyes went glassy. He reached down, and Solomon pressed his head into the boy's lap. Meanwhile, at Sarah's apartment, Luna sat cross-legged on the floor with Buddy beside her, a cup of cocoa in one hand and an envelope in the other. The living room smelled like cinnamon and old books. Sarah, ever tall and slender, leaned against the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed, her usual bun unraveling slightly. Her face, usually stern in thought, had softened these past few days. You going to open it? She asked. Luna nodded and peeled the envelope open. Inside was a printed statement, signed by the city office, notarized and marked official. Buddy, breed, golden retriever. Age, 5. Registered owner, Luna R. Ellison. Luna looked down at her dog. You're really mine now, she whispered. Buddy wagged his tail, licked her wrist, then promptly curled back into a tight golden circle on the rug. The next morning, a letter arrived, sealed in embossed cream-colored stationery, bearing the initials EF. Sarah opened it while Luna ate breakfast. She read it silently, then passed it to Luna without a word. Luna unfolded it. To the girl who didn't give up, I've lived my life building things that cannot love me back. You reminded me what I'd forgotten, that loyalty isn't bought, it's earned. Buddy is lucky to have you, and perhaps so am I. Enclosed is a gift. Consider it a thank you, or a beginning. EF inside was a second envelope. A scholarship fund had been set up in Luna's name, for veterinary studies should she ever choose that path. And another, smaller card, handwritten in old ink. If he ever goes missing again, I hope you'll come looking for me. Luna folded the letter slowly, eyes shining. Sarah smiled softly. He's not the only one waking up, it seems. That afternoon, Luna and Buddy visited the rehab center. Buddy barked once when he saw Solomon, who lifted his head and gave a slow wag. Luna smiled at Sammy, who was now wearing a volunteer badge around his neck. I think they remember, she said. They never forgot, Sammy replied. In the soft hum of that quiet room, 2 dogs, once torn from their homes, lay side by side, one with golden fur like firelight, the other with eyes that had seen too much but still believed. And for a moment, in Ironvale, everything was still. Spring in Ironvale was different now. Where once it crept in unnoticed, smothered by smog and the slow grind of rusting machinery, it now arrived with color. Yellow wildflowers broke through cracks in the sidewalks. Paint, fresh, hopeful, blossomed across walls once stained with soot. And at the heart of this quiet revolution stood Sector 7, no longer a corpse of steel, but something reborn. They called it the Sanctuary, where towers once groaned and stairwells echoed with footsteps of fear. Now children's laughter rang. The skeletal refinery, gutted and reimagined, had been transformed into a sanctuary for displaced animals and children alike. A living space of gardens, play areas, and shaded paths lined with native plants. Sunlight spilled through newly cut skylights, catching wind chimes made of old copper piping that sang in a dozen soft tones. Emerson Faulkner had vanished from the world stage shortly after signing the last donation papers. His face disappeared from newspapers, his voice from stockholder calls, but his presence lingered in quieter ways now. In the recycled solar panels powering the sanctuary, in the community greenhouse built from salvaged factory glass, in the plaque at the entrance that read, "A place for second chances." At the center of it all was Luna. Now 11, a little taller, a little bolder, she wore her green volunteer vest with the sleeves rolled up and her name tag pinned slightly crooked. Her hair, no longer always tangled, fell in soft waves to her shoulders. Her hands were usually stained with dirt or paint or dog food. She didn't mind. Beside her sat Buddy, ever faithful. He had aged, just slightly. Silver had begun to frost the edges of his ears and muzzle. He moved more slowly on colder days, and his naps grew longer. But his eyes were the same, soft, steady, always watching. Children often gathered around him, drawn by his gentle presence. Luna would kneel beside them and say, "This is Buddy. He saved me once, and now he helps me save others." Sammy, now a permanent resident in the care program overseen by the city, had blossomed. No longer the boy in oversized hoodies and hidden corners, he now led workshops on empathy, teaching kids how to read a dog's body language or how to approach animals with respect. He spoke with the slow confidence of someone who had once been overlooked and now stood tall because someone finally saw him. He wore a cap most days, one Luna had given him. It was green and embroidered with the words, "Kindness counts," something Sammy believed now, not just because it sounded good, but because he had lived the proof. Their newest program, Hearts and Paws, had just launched. It paired children recovering from trauma with animals recovering from abandonment. The idea was simple. Healing goes both ways. They didn't need grand speeches or therapists with clipboards. Just a quiet hour in a sunlit room, a dog at your side, someone to listen. Sarah watched it all from a distance. Now nearly 70, she remained tall and graceful, her spine straight and her eyes sharp as ever. The deep creases in her face were softened by the way she smiled when watching Luna, or when Buddy rested his head on her lap during lunch breaks. She still wore her wool shawl, though it was patched and faded. She claimed the wind still bothered her knees. But those who knew her well suspected it was less about warmth and more about memory, holding on to a piece of the past, even as she stepped into the light of something new. One afternoon, as Luna and Sammy guided a group of students through the newly restored turbine garden, a space where wild vines now wrapped gently around old machinery, Vega arrived. Detective Louise Vega looked oddly at home among the community she had once protected from shadows. Her dark coat was gone, replaced by a light linen jacket and sensible shoes. She walked with purpose, always, but now with less armor. She stopped beside the gate, arms crossed, a slight smile playing at her lips. "You two run this place like pros," she called out. Sammy turned, grinning. "We've had good training," Vega nodded. "Came to drop something off." From her bag, she pulled a weathered file folder, thin, marked with the faded city crest. "It's the final approval," she said. "The sanctuary is now officially a registered nonprofit with city support and permanent zoning. You're not going anywhere." Luna blinked. "You mean—" "Yep," Vega said. "No more temporary permits. This place is here to stay." The kids cheered. Buddy barked once, softly. Vega knelt beside him and scratched behind his ears. "Still on duty, huh?" Buddy rested his chin on her knee. It was all the answer she needed. That evening, long after the children had gone home and the last light faded from the sky, Luna sat with Buddy beneath the old refinery tower. It still stood, now painted sky blue and wrapped in ivy, its rusted bones softened by time and care. Fireflies blinked lazily in the air. The night smelled of soil and new flowers. Luna leaned her head against Buddy's side. "You remember the first time we came here?" she whispered. "You were hurt. I was scared. Everything was dark." Buddy sighed and pressed closer. "But now look," she said. "We made it." A soft breeze stirred the wind chimes above them, sending a melody through the sanctuary, bright and broken and beautiful. Behind her, Sammy approached carrying a small lantern. His shadow stretched long across the grass. "Come on," he said. "They're starting the bonfire." Luna rose slowly. "Let's go, Bud." Buddy stood, joints clicking softly, and followed them across the grass, step by steady step. The fire was already lit when they arrived, flames crackling in the heart of a stone circle where children gathered with sticks and marshmallows. Adults stood nearby, chatting, laughing. Somewhere in the back, someone played guitar, off-key, but full of joy. Luna and Sammy sat side by side, Buddy curling up between them, his tail tapping against their ankles. Sarah watched from her bench, sipping tea from a metal thermos. Vega stood beside her, arms folded, eyes soft. And above them, stars blinked into being, one by one. Sector 7 no longer groaned under the weight of sorrow. It had become something else, something tender, something alive. A green place on burnt ground. A story that had started in silence and ended in song. Sometimes, the world feels like Sector 7 once was. Cold, broken, forgotten by those who once promised to care. But even there, in places thick with rust and sorrow, God sends light. Sometimes that light comes with 4 legs and golden fur. Sometimes it comes as a stubborn little girl who refuses to give up on love. Or a boy who shares his sandwich with a dog no one else saw. This story isn't just about a lost dog, or a decaying city, or a broken billionaire. It's about how kindness rewires the world, one act at a time. And maybe, just maybe, it's about a small miracle. Not the kind that parts oceans, but the kind that reconnects hearts. So if you've ever doubted whether what you do matters, know this. Every prayer, every kind word, every time you choose love over anger, that is your miracle. Now it's your turn. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a small miracle like Luna's? Or known a dog like Buddy? We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories where animals and people heal each other in beautiful, unexpected ways. And until we meet again in the next story, may God bless you and protect the ones you love, 2-legged or 4. Amen.